Arch Advocate Show for Tuesday. Lies! Lies! And damn lies. That was, Mark Twain said that. There's three types of lies. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. Got a little bit of a, we're gonna be weeding through the lies, how to inoculate the lies and inoculate yourself from lies, because we are living in a just an absolute shadow world. So I'm going to be reading. I'm going to read a daily devotional to you that kind of stems from a passage of scripture. And first, I'm going to read the scripture to you. So I in my heart, I hope that you're listening to this like on your way to work or before you started, engaging in your work for the day. This is the very beginning of Psalm 46. Ready for this? God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Very present. Right? That's the thing, is like you in the last, I don't know, 100 years of American history or Western history, we've gotten very rich. We've gotten very accustomed to not having to struggle, not having to grow our own food, we've lived free from plague and drought and famine. And just like every other culture of God's people that experienced that, they have forgotten. They forgot their God, and so have we. We've gotten to a place where it's like, I don't know if it's actually, I don't know if he's actually present. Sure, I believe there's a God, but I don't feel the presence. And this is, most widely believed King David's words. And he says, God is our refuge and strength, and a very present help in trouble. Therefore, will not we fear. Kind of weird wording there in the King James. I'm assuming it means we will not fear. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, and though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. Selah. And that word Selah, it means, man, you need to trip out on this concept. You need to go deep, like meditate on this and, go deep. Go deep on this. Because when he talks about like the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, you can actually go watch footage of Mount St. Helens erupting. It took a long time. And if you watch the footage, certain footage will point this out, that like there was like a gigantic bubble, right? Like the earth bubbled up, it swelled up and then exploded. That's what he's talking about. A volcano is basically what I'm getting at. So one more time, let me read this. God is our refuge and strength, our safe place, our safe space. God is our safe space. The kingdom of heaven is our safe space and our strength. Not our strength. He is our strength. A very present help in trouble. Which is good, because we're in a lot of trouble right now. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, and though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, and though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. Meditate on that. Get into it. Try to get your mind around that. That you could be standing on top of an exploding mountain, and God will be your refuge and your safe space and your strength. And you will know that he is present, because he will be very present. Which is kind of a strange thing to say, because there's like that word present. It's like there's no very present. You know what I mean? There's just, you're either present or absent. Right? But the emphasis is there. It's like, no. It's all real. He will be very present to you, and you will know. And so I'm going to take that, and I'm going to read just a quick devotion to you before you get to work, and then I'm going to go off on some things. But this devotional book was sent to my wife by my mom, and it was written by one Sarah Young. And it's called Jesus Calling, and it's a devotion that's written in the first person as if it's Jesus speaking to you. So, however you may feel about that, some people don't like that, but whatever. I like it. And I'm going to read the devotion for January 8th to you. Softly I announce my presence. Shimmering hues of radiance tap gently on your consciousness, seeking entrance. Though I have all power in heaven and on earth, I am infinitely tender with you. The weaker you are, the more gently I approach you. Let your weakness be my door. Let your weakness be a door to my presence. Whenever you feel inadequate, remember that I am your ever-present help. Hope in me, and you will be protected from depression and self-pity. Hope is like a golden cord connecting you to heaven. The more you cling to this cord, the more I bear the weight of your burdens. Thus, you are lightened. Heaviness is not of my kingdom. Cling to hope, and my rays of light will reach you through the darkness. These are very dark times. And lies are, Jesus referred to the devil, Satan, as being the father of lies. And that's we kind of read over that, we skip over that. Okay, father of lies, like he's the originator of all lies. But it's actually a bit more profound than that, because you remember there was that one time when the disciples asked Jesus to teach them how to pray. Said John taught his disciples how to pray. We want you to teach us how to pray. And there's, at some point this year, I'm sure I'm going to get to this. But even that is a little bit more profound than what might meet the eye, is that it's the only place in the Gospels where we find the disciples asking Jesus to teach them anything. Right? There's no place in the Gospels where the disciples ask Jesus, like, hey, can you teach us how to heal people? Can you teach us how to make fish and loaves? Can you teach us how to forgive? Because evidently forgiveness is like the whole thing. Right? Like Jesus talked a lot about forgiveness. There's no place in the recorded documents where we find the disciples asking Jesus to teach them anything, except one place. And he says, Jesus, teach us how to pray. And what does Jesus say? He says, okay, first of all, don't pray with repetitions. Second of all, now repeat after me. It's kind of funny. And you should meditate on that concept too. He says, first, don't pray in repetition. Don't say things over and over and over again. That's worthless. Now, when you pray like this: Our Father. Now, again, after 2,000 years of tradition, 2,000 years of speaking a certain way, we've kind of lost the profound nature of that. Let me assure you that if you were to study the scriptures, you won't find God being referred to as Father by the Jews. That was not something that happened. They would refer, God is obviously, they had a sense of like, well, God created everything and therefore he is the father of it. But there wasn't that intimacy of referring to the Almighty as my Father, like Dad. And that's when it says our Father in Aramaic, it's Abba. Like it's like here in Albania, like the word for daddy is Oba. Oba, right? And that's it's not the word for father, it's the word for daddy. And that's that word Abba, it's like the same thing. And that was a revolutionary concept that blew the minds of the disciples. Like, oh, so what Jesus was saying is like, when you talk to God, you have to get your mind into a place where you understand who you're addressing, and it's Father. So it's a very, very profound thing. And it's one of two places where we can see God, Jesus, God, the Word of God made flesh, where we can see Jesus using the word Father. And the other context is he's referring to Satan. And he says Satan is the father of lies. Right? Like, that's, if you can try to get your mind around that the devil, Satan, or Hasatan as it is, and that word means your enemy, your adversary, the thing that's trying to kill you, the thing that hates you. The father, one who gives birth to, one who creates lies. When you're living in a time of lies, it's like, man, the father of lies is busy in his bedroom because, man, there's just little baby lies being let out left and right. How do you inoculate yourself against that? There's only one way. You have to live in the truth. You have to live in the truth. It's like, if you say you have, I used to have this coworker. His name was, I want to say it was Lito, but I'm thinking of that. No, it was Lito. His name was Lito, and he was a great salesman. I know that there's that song Lito Shuffle by what's his name, but he was a great salesman and a wonderful guy, just salt of the earth dude. But old Lito went 600 pounds without breaking a sweat, right? Of course, I'm talking about me not breaking a sweat. He was constantly sweating, but he was easily 600 pounds. I remember that. I remember one time I went in to talk to one of the managers, and Lito was in there talking because they were talking about hunting, which kind of blew my mind. But when I got in there, they were talking about he was talking about him and his big fat friend, right? He had another friend who had an addiction to food. And he was telling the story about how the night before they had gone to Krispy Kreme and that they sat in the truck and they ate so many donuts. They kept eating donuts until they threw up. I remember that story. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. But I remember being blown away by that. Like, dude, like what? You're going to die, brother. And he was such a good dude. You know what I mean? Like, I felt bad. It was just like, dude, if I could just stop you from doing this to yourself, like the world would be better off with you in it. You know what I mean? Hard worker, smart guy, nice guy, loves people, just, it was like 600 pounds. And like, it was horrific to watch him like walk around, and he could walk, by the way. Maybe it was 400 pounds. No, yeah, he was over 400 pounds. Maybe he wasn't 600 pounds, but he was gigantic. And you think like, well, how do I fix that? How do I fix that? Right? So just imagine like poor Lito, just imagine he's the lie. And how do I inoculate the lie with truth? You know what I mean? Like what do you do in that situation? And the answer is you have to be healthy. You have to be healthy. You have to eat right, abstain from tobacco and alcohol, drink lots of water, eat clean food, stay away from fast food. That's the first thing you have to do. You have to live in the truth. And then you have to go be friends with the lie. Right? You have to take that light into the darkness. Not friends with the lie as in, to converse with it, but you have to be able to identify the lie. That's a lie. He's living a lie. Right? Poor Lito was living in a lie, and I'm quite certain that he's dead now. There's no way that guy is still alive. Right? Because that was 10 years ago. That was 10 years ago that I think the last time I saw old Lito. He's got to be dead by now. But it's like, work out, eat right, and then go be friends with Leto. That's the answer. But the first part of that is like, you have to live in the truth. And Jesus said, I am the truth. And again, goes back to, look, it's either it's all real or it's all false. Pick one. And if you believe it's all real, dive into it and find that very present help. Because these times that we're in, these are very biblical times that we're living in. Right? Let me give you one example. You think of all the problems that we're having as a society right now, right? So things that could be addressed with new laws, like the fact that Congress people have a fund to pay for their sexual deviancy. They literally, like, I've talked about this before. Tim Proyce talked about it on his podcast. Like, you've heard this before. Like, there's a fund that all the Congress people voted for, and they said, look, we're going to have this money set aside so that when we sexually harass the help and they sue us, we're just going to give them this money, and the taxpayers are going to pay for it. Well, that needs to be addressed with the law. That's not just improper usage of taxpayer funds. It's wildly, wildly immoral. Wildly immoral. Or take things like, Flint, Michigan evidently doesn't have any clean water. But what Flint, Michigan does have is politicians. Michigan has politicians, both the city and the state. They've got a governor, they've got 2 senators, they've got congresspeople, they've got mayors, they've got county registrars, they've got everything. They've got the full infrastructure, and yet they are suffering from a third world problem. No clean water. That is an abomination, and that should be against the law. There should be a law for that. Like, hey, if you're a politician and this problem happens and then continues, you get prosecuted. And then you go to jail. But evidently there is no law. Or like, the financial collapse of 2008, when all of these bankers were shuffling mortgages from one lending house to the other in this gigantic 3-card Monte game of avoiding the consequences of their horrific lending practices. The reason why none of those people went to jail is because they didn't break a law. There was no law. There should probably be a law, but there isn't. Why did I just say all that? Well, one, to point out, like, that, those are pretty easy, right? I don't think any liberal or Republican, or conservative, Republican, Democrat, transvestite, gay dude, whatever, like, I don't think anybody would disagree with, like, yeah, dude, there should be a law about that, right? But what laws have we seen? This is interesting. If you want to get kind of a glimpse of, like, yeah, like, there's some serious stuff about to go down. Let me just give you this. Just before the Christmas break, right? There's you go into the Christmas break, and then Congress shuts down, or the Senate shuts down, or whatever. Like, just like everybody else, the government has time off. Right before the Christmas break, there was some news that Senator Kamala Harris had gotten a law passed. What was this law about? The law was about making it a federal crime. Follow me on this one, right? This is going to take a little while. It is now a federal crime to lynch somebody. Well, that's weird. I wasn't aware that wasn't already a federal crime. Now, I thought murder was a crime already. Murdering somebody is a crime. In all 50 states, it's against the law to murder somebody. You can kill people, but you can't murder people. Right? Somebody breaks into your house, whatever, and you kill them. You have stand your ground laws and whatever, but you cannot murder people. And yet, Senator Kamala Harris was rejoicing that from now on, it's going to be a federal crime to lynch somebody. Now, lynching. That's a weird thing. Is lynching a huge problem? How many lynchings happen every year? Right? Well, the answer is 81. It's 81 lynchings every year in the United States. Oh, no, I'm sorry about that. There's not 81 lynchings in America every year. The last time a lynching happened was 1981. The last time there was a lynching in the United States, it was in 1981. I was 8 years old. I'm 45 now. When I was 8 years old, the last lynching in the United States happened. The guy's name was Michael Donald, and this was in Mobile, Alabama. And it just so happens it was the Ku Klux Klan that did it. That was against the law. It was against in Alabama. It's against the law to lynch people, right? Not allowed to murder people. Why is it? I'm going to get to the lie here in just a second. You have to ask yourself, with all the things that we need laws for, right? To keep politicians in check, right? To keep politicians from blowing through money and taking their fancy vacations to go, sleep with prostitutes in Brazil or whatever it is that they're doing, like, or to take their bunny rabbit on a $600 plane ride to Maui, right? All the laws that need to be in place that aren't. Why is it that Kamala Harris wanted to have a law for lynching when the last lynching in the United States was 30 years ago? Right? Over 30 years. There's people, there's people right now that were born, lived, had a number of children, and have died. You know what I mean? For all intent and purpose, they lived a full life. They just didn't live a long life, but the life that they had was full. They were born, they lived, they procreated, and they died in that time. Why is this important? Well, it's because of the meaning of the word lynching. What does it mean to lynch somebody? Right? Last lynching in the United States was in 1981. What does it mean to lynch somebody? Let me give you the old word snob treatment here. Lynching meaning. Let's see. Cambridge. What do you think I should go with? Cambridge Dictionary? Lynching Wikipedia? Oxford Dictionary? Let me click on Oxford here real quick. Here we go. Lynch. This is the definition of lynching. This is why it is now a federal crime to lynch somebody. To lynch. A group of people kill someone for an alleged offense without a legal trial, especially by hanging. Her father had been lynched for a crime he didn't commit, a city full of lynchings and riots. You know, the fact that it points out hanging kind of tells me I don't really like that definition, because it's like, well, I mean, tar and feathering was lynching. Yeah, here's the says if a crowd of people lynch someone who they believe is guilty of a crime, they kill them without a legal trial, usually by hanging. A group, lynch is a verb, a group of people to kill someone who has not been found guilty of a crime at a legal trial, especially by hanging. Killed using a rope around the neck. I don't really see that caveat. That doesn't really fit, because it's like, well, it could be firing squad, it could be tar and feathering. By the way, tar and feathering is deadly. You know, it's every time. Why would they want that? Why would they need to make a very obvious, right, a thing that's against the law everywhere, a thing that is not in the Constitution, right? Remember, states' rights, right? Like again, the federal drinking age is 18, But in every single state, including Hawaii and Alaska, in every state it's 21. Why? Well, because states' rights. You know what I mean? The state has the right, and anything that's not in the Constitution automatically falls to the state. There's nothing in the Constitution about like that sort of thing. So why is it now a federal crime to kill somebody without a trial, and to kill somebody because you have found, a group of people have found them guilty of a crime, and they completely circumvented due process, and they just went straight to the execution? Why is that now a federal crime? Why is it that since it's been over 30 years since the last time that happened in the United States, why is this something that a politician would even care to address when there are so many other right now kind of issues? Right? Like there's so many other issues. It's like, dude, there should be a law for the banking industry and the financial services and all that other stuff. You know how many laws surround insurance? It's nuts. I have my licenses to sell insurance. It's crazy. There's so many laws. If you're an insurance salesman, it's real easy to break the law because it's like, dude, there's so many. You know what I mean? But all these laws pertain. You hear about these politicians. It's like, dude, my congressman Duncan Hunter bought a $600 plane ticket for his kid's rabbit to fly to Hawaii. It's like, dude, that should be against the law, and that happened that happened recently. The last lynching there was 1981. Why was this important to you when it never happens? It hasn't happened in over 3 decades. Why is this important? It's important because they see it coming. They see it coming. Right? You can push people just so far. Right? As the news keeps coming out, it's like, wait a minute. You're telling me that Congress people, all of them, everybody who voted in favor, like everybody who voted on the measure to create a fund for sexual deviancy, to pay off the victims of their sexual deviancy, every single person who voted yay. Right? Like eventually people are going to say, okay, we're just going to have to drag you out into the streets and hang you around the neck with a rope until you stop twitching. Right? That is the inevitable conclusion. When you have Congress people and senators standing up there saying things out loud like a wall is immoral. If you build a wall, you're trying to keep people out, and that's just immoral. That's un-American. And yet, you live behind a gigantic wall. I can't come over to your house. If I want to come to your house, I've got to go through a security gate with a man that's standing there who has a gun on his hip and the control button for the gigantic gate, and that's what you live behind. You're lying. Right? And the thing is that even liberals, right? Even liberals somewhere in their mind, even if it doesn't come to the forefront of their consciousness, somewhere in their mind they are processing that, and the disconnect is happening. And when you do that, it drives people crazy. When you cause people to live in the darkness, it drives people crazy. Do you understand? Even the people that are like, yeah, walls are immoral, somewhere in their mind, they know, wait a minute, you live behind a wall. Does that make you immoral? It can't be helped. To give you an example of what I'm talking about. And this may seem kind of random, but stick with me here. I have a friend of mine, Josh. We were talking one time. He's like, dude, I'm just not good at math. I'm just not good at math. And I said, no, you are good at math. And he says, no. And I said, no. Like, have you ever driven a car down the highway? Right. When you're driving your car down the highway, right, you're going 60, 70, 75 miles an hour, whatever it is, you're driving 2,000 pounds of metal at a velocity, 75 miles in an hour, going very fast. Not only that, and there's so many variables to just that. Like, even if you were on the highway all by yourself, you are in a deadly situation. Your tire could explode. Jerk the wheel out of your hand, slam you right into the partition, snap your neck, dead. Right? Some crazy confluence of events where your gas tank ignited and exploded. Of course, that would never happen, but a meteor could fall from the heavens and hit your car directly. Dead. There's just so many variables. Now, let's add a whole bunch of other unpredictable variables. Traffic. There's, within your eyesight, there's 100, both in your rear view mirror and, out your front window. On both sides of the highway, there's at least 100 other motorists traveling at the same speed, half of which, right, or depending on the time of day, but many of which are traveling directly towards you, just to your left a little bit. But they're right there, man. You know what I mean? There is very little, very little. My brother, he used to live in Las Vegas, he and his wife, and one day they told me a story that this guy was driving a concrete truck, and he lost control of his concrete truck, which was fully loaded. And he's barreling down the highway, and he lost control, and he broke through the partition, right? That concrete partition, just rammed right through it. It's a concrete truck. Hit somebody head on, dead on impact, flattened that car. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. And when you're driving down the road with all those other motorists that are also driving 2,000 pounds of displacement, 2,000 pounds of metal at 75 miles an hour, your subconscious mind kicks into calculus. Have you ever been in that near accident state of mind where time itself slows down? Well, Pete, time doesn't actually slow down. Yes, it does. And nearly everybody that's driven for any significant amount of time knows that sensation. Time slows down. Everything slows down, and your mind sees everything like Neo in the Matrix looking at the bullets. That is a universal experience. Like, almost everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. Your mind goes into calculus. And it doesn't require you to grab a pen and a pencil, or a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper to solve the problem. Your mind knows calculus already. You do it automatically. And when you're driving down the road, many people have even had that experience of lost time, right? Where you're driving down the road, you're driving to work, and all of a sudden, magically, right? Like, you're driving and you're on the on-ramp, you're getting on the highway, and then all of a sudden, magically, like Scotty beamed you up, all of a sudden you find yourself in the parking lot at work. And you have no recollection of how you got there, or very little recollection. And that's the reason why, is because your mind kicks over and says, okay, I'm doing this math now. And you go off in your mind and think about your life problems or the things you want to accomplish or whatever. That's also a universal experience. Everybody knows, is my point. Everybody's good at math. You just may not be very good, when it comes time to actually do it on paper, but your brain has the knowledge. You do it every time you get on the highway. Your brain starts thinking, okay, there's that car, there's that car, there's that car, and velocity, and blah, 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 right? You go like in that scene in Rain Man where he's like crunching all the numbers at the same time. That's exactly what happens. Your brain does it for you, and you don't even recognize it. So when these people get on TV and they lie, oh, walls are immoral and racist, somewhere in their mind, even the most bedwetting, Ocasio-Cortez-loving liberal is thinking, so then you're immoral and racist? You live behind a wall. That's the math. It's the math. And the math suggests that you are immoral and racist. Right? So what do? Do you curse the darkness? Right? Do you curse the lie? No, that's not good. As a matter of fact, it's exactly what the demons want you to do. They want you cursing. They want you cursing. They want you spitting out curses out of your mouth and out of your heart, because then they got you. The purpose of those lies, right? The purpose of those lies is to, for the people that like, they're fans of the liars. Oh, we're just going to tax people 70%. It's going to fix everything. Like there's people that are fans of that, and that's one purpose of the lie, is to take those people and herd them off into one corral. But the other purpose is for us, is to get us fuming mad that these people are speaking lies and that people are buying it. The demonic power to move people like us into another corral where we start breathing curses. That's where the demons want us. We cannot do it. We must not do that. Jesus Christ said, and now again, remember, precious few words. Jesus Christ spoke 16 hours a day, every day, for 3 years. Right? It's a lot of hours. That's a lot of logged hours of speaking. We have about 8 of them. 16 hours a day times 365 times 3. That's a lot. What is that? What is that? That's 6. Man, I can't even do the math in my head. 15,000, roughly 45,000 hours, or 4,500. Anyways, it's a lot. It's no less than 4,500 hours. And sometime I'll do the math. We have 8. Okay? Over 4,000 hours of speaking, we have 8 of them. And so when we approach what it was that we have recorded that Jesus Christ said, you have to assume and know and believe in your heart that this is the most important thing that you could ever read. Each line of it. This is the most important thing in the world. This is the most important thing in the world. There's 4 Gospels. The longest one will take you about 8 hours to read. That's Matthew. And every single letter you have to look at and think, this is the most important letter I've ever seen in my life. And when Jesus Christ, when it's recorded as Jesus Christ saying, bless and do not curse, he was giving very important instructions. Do not curse. Don't do it. Why? Could it be because that's what the demons want you to do? They want you puking up venom. They want you looking at Ocasio-Cortez and going, How does anybody believe it? What's going on here? Senator Kamala Harris just passed a law to make sure that when the people of the United States have had enough, and they come in, they say, all right, listen, you people, right? When they start passing laws to further expose the vulnerable to sexual violence, and the American people see that, and they say, okay, obviously you're an evil person, and now you're going after children. I'm sorry, but we're just gonna have to drag you out into the streets and pour boiling hot tar over you. And once you have suffocated and burned to death, we're gonna throw feathers on you to let the other politicians look at and see, like, that's what's gonna happen if you keep this up. That's why Senator Kamala Harris passed that law, because they can see it coming. And she didn't, obviously, the way that our system works, she didn't do that by herself. There was a lot of people in on that. When my own congressman, who I used to like, and his father, who preceded him, get caught flying a bunny on taxpayer dollars, eventually the people are like, okay, listen, we got to make an example out of you. We have to make an example. We can't let you just retire and get your $200,000 a year for the rest of your life. We're going to have to drag you out into the street and make an example out of you. But now it's a federal crime. Just before Christmas, that happened. Why would they do that when there wasn't a lynching for over 30 years? Well, the reason was is because they can see it coming. They know, like, man, we're really pushing these people. We're about to push them a whole lot further, and we need to make sure that when they start coming after us and start executing us, that we will be able to call in federal law agencies. The FBI, the marshals, these kind of people. But you can't get infuriated by that. So what do? Right? You don't fear. It's like we're standing on top of a mountain, just like what King David wrote, or whoever wrote the Psalms. I'm just going to say King David. It was King David. King David wrote, he said, look, even if you're on top of a volcanic mountain that is in the process of erupting. That's what he said. So even though he said if you're on top of a mountain that is shaking and is swelling, right? Because look, that was 2,700 years ago that King David wrote that, right? They didn't understand what a volcano was, how it worked, what was actually going on underneath there. It's just like, whoa, the mountain shook and it swelled and then it exploded. God must have been very angry, right? That's, as far as they knew, that's what was going on. And King David said, even if you're on top of a volcanic mountain, you're on top of a mountain, you don't know what a volcano is, and all of a sudden that mountain starts shaking and you can see the ground swelling. You're like, oh no, this mountain's going to explode and I am going to, not only am I going to die, but nobody's going to know, right? I'm going to be shot up into outer space, almost. King David said, even if that was the case, God is your refuge, your safe place, and a very present help. Not just to come down and make you feel better about the fact that you're standing on top of a live volcano. That's not help. It's not what help is. That would be comfort. And if that's what King David meant, that's the word he would have used. And he did not use that word. If King David would have said, even if you're on top of a mountain and it's about to explode and you're going to die, don't worry. This God, he'll make you feel better about it. You'll feel okay. You won't be scared. Don't be scared. He didn't say that. He said God will come and help you. And we are standing on top of a live volcano right now. The United States is a live volcano. And the ground is swelling and it's all shaking. Which ties into another prophecy. I'll probably get to that at some point in 2019. God is the ever-present help. Brothers and sisters, call out. All right, like, look, there's a lot of people out there, Christian people, Christian ministers, will say this or that. Well, if you just read your Bible 15 minutes a day, then by the end of the year you'll have read the whole thing, and then you'll be that much closer to God. If you just, maybe you can't pray for an hour a day, but just start off with 5 minutes. Just be resolved to pray for 5 minutes a day, and you'll be better off. Make sure you pay your tithes, and then God says, test me on this, and you'll see your money growing. They'll say a lot of things. And whatever they say, I have to assume that no matter what they say, it's wrong, because Christianity in America and in the Western world has gone horribly wrong. Christians in America are powerless and ineffectual, and most people don't have any sort of visceral, textual relationship with God. They don't have stories to tell where it's like, oh no, this is how I know. This is how I know. And though I can't transfer it to you, this is how I know. Most Christians don't have that. That means that we've gone horribly wrong. King David said, very present. So my advice to you, I'd like to sit here and say no, I can assure you there is a God, and if you just dive in, you'll know if you just dive in. But the fact is, I cannot assure you. Assurance is if a cop pulls you over and says, license, registration, whatever, and you say, oh, I'm in between, right? I just mailed off my stuff for the new registration, and I accidentally took the registration card out, and I didn't put it back in my car. I'm sorry about that. And the cop says, well, you can't look at the cop and say, well, but I assure you this is my car. It's no, it doesn't work like that. That's not how assurance works. You can say, give me 1 second, officer, and I will assure you that this is my automobile. And you reach into the glove box and you grab the title. That's assurance. And you show it to him and say, look, I'm real sorry about the registration, but see, this is the title, that's my name, as you can see on my driver's license. Now that officer is assured that you are not a car thief. That's what assurance is. And I'd like to sit here and tell you, I can assure you there is a living God who will speak to you and still speaks to his people today. Still works miracles. Crazy miracles. Not that there's degrees of them, they're all crazy. Ever tell you about that time God gave me 5 euros in a parking lot in Austria? Ever tell you guys that story? Yeah, I'll get to it. They're all crazy. And I'd like to be able to sit here and say, I can assure you, but I can't. You have to see it. You have to know. A lot of people used to ask me all the time, well, you went looking for God. What did you find? What's the truth? You ask the question, is there a God or is there not? Well, what did you come up with? Well, the answer is if you want to know, you must ask. You must find out. Right? You turn on the Travel Channel, they got something on Fiji. You look at, you've got a 72-inch plasma screen, 1080p. You look at that and be like, oh, that's really beautiful. That's really beautiful. But let me assure you that your experience with Fiji is as flat as your screen. You go to Fiji and it's completely different. It's a whole nother matter to feel the sand in your toes and the warm water up to your knees. It is a completely different matter when you're standing on that beach in the South Pacific and the air is perfumed with all kinds of exotic flora. Coconut trees that reek of coconut oil. All kinds of different flowers that just give off nectar. It's a completely different thing. And the only way you can know is if you go buy a plane ticket and fly to Fiji. Buy a pair of ridiculous looking board shorts. Put your feet in the water. If you want to know if there's a God, you're going to have to talk to him. And if you can't hear him, great news. I can't hear God. You have two choices in that. Either say to yourself, okay, well, there must be no God because I can't hear him. Okay, well, that's certainly a possibility. Or you don't know how to hear. That's also another possibility, and also backed by Scripture. If you can't hear him, ask. Say, God, listen, I'm sorry. I can't hear you. Please teach me how to hear you. I'm living on top of a bursting, bubbling up volcano. I'm scared to death. I don't know what to do. Please help me. Please come and talk to me. Please teach me. Clean out my ears. Teach me how to position myself to where I can hear your voice. And hear the difference. You know what I mean? God speaks. It's very different than the way we speak to one another, but you'll know it. Then you will know. And then you will have that, what's called blessed assurance. Remember that from hymnals? Blessed assurance, people. That is my wish for you today. God is an ever-present help. God is a very present help. Not just comfort, but help. That's the show for today. In Jesus' name. Hey, listen. Boy, I hate to bring this up. Money. If you guys want to support the show. And thanks to Erica Schultz, by the way. New person who's been listening for a very long time, evidently. And just kicked in some money right before Christmas. Thank you, Erica. So much for that. If you want to support the show. Oh, that reminds me. You know what, you guys? I didn't take down the Patreon yet. Anyway, I'll explain that tomorrow. If you want to support the show, you can do that on PayPal. You can go to my website, which might be going down in March if things don't change. If you want to support the show financially, you can go to PayPal. It's PayPal.me/ArchAdvocate, or you can just go on to my website, archadvocate.com, and click on the PayPal link. All finances or whatever, help, donation, however you want to support, is appreciated. The show costs me money. Ipso facto, it's on you. Thanks for the money, everybody. PayPal. We're not going to be doing Patreon anymore. Thanks for the dough. Tune in tomorrow, and we will talk about some other cool stuff. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a great day.